When I was 16, my family took a road trip to California. It was just me, my brother, mom, and dad. It was a hot summer day. Our plan is to visit the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge and other places of interest, but that's the main thing to visit. While in the car, my dad and mom would take turns driving, and we would sleep in the rest stop in the car. My little brother is 14 years old and is a normal kid. During our trip, he started to act weird. When we got to Modesto, California, he would say strange things to my parents, like if one day he died, please don't cry for him and just move on. My dad would comfort him and ask if he was okay. My mom would always say to him that if he's not feeling well, we could turn back home at any time, but he said that his only wish was to go and see the San Francisco Bridge. So we continue our journey. It was a fun road trip because we would stop at all kinds of places like Six Flags Magic Mountain, parks, hiking path, and restaurant. We had so much fun and laughed, but the only concern was my little brother. He would talk in his sleep, and he would say that this was a good place to die. Some nights, I would put my arms around him to sleep because I kept having bad feelings about him. While driving late at night, he would wave at an empty corner and ask, "Why is that woman following us?" It was late at night, and we couldn't see anything. My dad would tell him to rest and close his eyes, he was just tired. Then my brother replied, "That woman has followed us since we first entered California." My parents would just shrug it off, but I could tell in my mom's eyes that she was worried. We finally got to San Francisco, but decided to go eat at a Chinese buffet before checking out the Golden Gate Bridge. While eating at the buffet, he'd whisper to himself that this would be his last meal. I got chills seeing him like that, and have never seen him act this way before. We finally made it to the Golden Gate Bridge. We walked on the side of the bridge, taking lots of photos, and having the best time of our lives. While walking next to my brother, I saw him take out his wallet and phone. He threw them into the ocean and said that he wouldn't need them anymore. He then said to me that I had been a great brother and that he would always remember me. I was shocked and confused. Surprisingly, he ran to a small fence and climbed it, then turned around and looked at us and smiled. Then he jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge. My dad ran as fast as he could and tried to grab him, but it was too late. Everyone around us started taking out their phones and calling the police. 20 minutes later, some police boat shows up and tries to look for my little brother's body. My mom was on her knees the whole time, crying and praying that they would recover his body alive. We slept in San Francisco for 3 days to see if they found his body, but nothing. My dad had not talked to us during the 3 days in the hotel, and my mom was just crying the whole time. The police said that we should go home and that they would call us if there was any update. They told us that they couldn't do anything and would keep their eyes on the water. Finally, a week came and we were ready to go back home. We drove to the bridge and slowed down to see the place where my brother had jumped off. Tears were coming out of my eyes as we said our goodbye. As we slowly drove away, I turned once again to see that spot where my brother jumped off. I clearly saw him waving at me. Then I yelled out loud, "Wait, it's him, Mom and Dad, he's right there." My dad parked his car in the middle of the road and ran out. "Where are you, my son? Let's go home." Then he dropped to his knees and cried. We caused a traffic jam on the bridge, and cars were honking their horns, so my mom and I got to get my dad and back on the road. 4 days later, we finally got home. I feel so empty inside. But what still creeps me to this day is that when we went through the photos that we took at the bridge, there was always the same woman in a long white dress standing behind my little brother. Maybe that was the woman that he had been seeing throughout our road trip. Fast forward 12 years later, my buddies and I went to a wedding in San Francisco. We got there a day early, so we decided to go around town to kill some time. We stopped at a restaurant, bought my little brother's favorite food, and dropped off at that place where he jumped off. I said my goodbye, and as I turned to walk away, a gush of wind blew into my ear and said, "Thank you, older brother." A few years back, I got off work from my late-night job around 2 a.m. in the morning and was on my way home. Coming through a back road, when it gets dark, it becomes pitch black because there are no street lights. I lived in one of those houses where it was off the city and had to drive some back roads to get to my house. On my way home on some pitch black road, I drove past a young woman wearing a dirty red dress. She had blonde hair with pale skin and was walking by herself. I felt pity for her, so I stopped my car and shouted out that if she liked a ride, I would give her a ride to her destination. The woman got into my car, and I took off driving. I asked where she wanted to go, but she said, "Just keep driving straight forward." We were driving for a while, and she led me deeper into some back roads where there were no houses nearby. Some time later, the woman asked me to stop and drop her off. I say, "Where do you live? I don't mind dropping you off at your house." She replied, "It's okay, my house is not too far off the road and she will rather walk." So she got off and I drove off. When I finally arrived at my house and started walking toward the front door, and to my horror, I saw the same lady in a red dress standing on my roof, waving at me. I ran inside my house and woke all my family up to come see it, but she was nowhere to be seen. My 2 older brothers even climbed up to the roof, but saw nothing. So they told me I was working too hard and just seeing things. I realized that I had just dropped off a random woman wearing a red dress, and she had now followed me home. A few days later, I got really sick, and my dad had to seek a shaman to do a ceremony for me. The shaman says that I was too nice, so the ghost wanted to come and stay with me. After the shaman ritual, my health returned. I learned my lesson and never picked up some random woman again, especially on a pitch black road out of nowhere. My 3 friends went to Table Mountain Casino, and we heard that the road there is haunted. So, as we were still having fun at the casino, one of my friends said that we should go home because it was getting late. So, on the way, the car suddenly dies. My friend and I got out and went out to check on the engine when, all of a sudden, we heard a voice from behind us. It was a lady in white. She says, "What are your names? Can I go with you guys?" By this time, we were freaked out. We were smart enough not to answer her, because who would be out here in the middle of the night, pitch black? It could only be a ghost. We acted like we didn't hear her, closed the hood, went inside the car, and tried to start the engine. Miraculously, the car started working, so we sped as fast as we could. What haunts us till this day is that, every mile or so that we travel, we would see the same lady standing on the side of the road, over and over again. We finally made it home safe, but that night, I had a dream that the lady that we saw was run over by a car, and she couldn't find her way home. We told the elders, and they called a shaman and did a small ritual for us, and said to us that we were lucky because if we had answered the woman, she would have followed us home. It's good that we ignored her.